the top 5 eyeshadow palette color stories so far in 2024. I thought this would be super fun to go through, and then also I will be doing a part 2 for the rest of the year, so June until December. And I cut this off right before the Cosmic Brushes palette and the Blend Money palette, so keep that in mind. I had to cut it off at some point, and I just happened to mentally cut it off before those came out. So maybe 1 or 2 of those might end up in the next top 5. And of course, this is completely based on my preference and on my opinion. I can't speak for everyone. Everyone has their own preference for color stories, etc. And in this video, I will be only talking about color stories. We're not going to talk about the formulas or anything like that. And please let me know what your top 5 are of this year so far. I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on which ones you think are the best color stories, the ones that inspire you the most. Let's get right into it. In the number 5 spot is the Secret Garden palette from Bella Beaute Bar, and I forgot to mention I have some of these palettes, but I don't have all of them. Just because I love the color story doesn't mean I have to have tried it. That being said, I do have this palette, so here's the inside color story. This one came out around springtime, so perfectly fitting. It is a larger palette, so there is so many different looks that you can create here. You can dip into the pinks, the greens, the teal, the brown. I love that there are neutrals all at the top. Those can really help to bridge all the colors in here. And of course, also the shimmers are very important in terms of the color. And I feel like we have a really nice balance of like a shimmer per color. So we have the pinks, we have the kind of coral shade, then we have the greens, and a neutral shimmer as well. I think these colors go really well together, and I think there's a couple of varying different tones. So we have some grassy greens, the teal, there's a light, medium, and dark shades, and that's definitely very, very important. That's why this one is a number 5. It definitely stands out to me when I was making this list. 4th place is actually a palette that I do not have, so I'm gonna pop up a picture, and that is the Simply Posh Coastal palette. Side note, I think you're going to see a little bit of a pattern, and my preferences there's going to be definitely grungy tones, so just keeping that in mind. I love the tones in here. I think it's perfect for the theme, and I love that you have some deeper mattes on the bottom, some lighter mattes at the top, and then the shimmers in the center. They've been very consistent in laying out their palettes like that, and I think it's just so nice to look at. And I also love that you can go column by column, or you can kind of dip in between, of course. The matte tones just really captured my heart in this, and then the shimmers really nicely accent the matte, so that's why this one is in 4th place. And in 3rd place is a palette that I also do not have, so I will pop up a picture, and that is the Groovy Garden palette from Ensley. Again, super grungy, very much a fall kind of color story. I love the mauvey pink, the pale orange, but then also like a burnt darker orange, and then the bright light green and the mint. I think it's a really interesting pairing together, and generally speaking, I do love me some orangey tones, so especially all the warmer tones on the very bottom row speak to me very much. And there is definitely some deepening up shades. It's again very important, and I think the shimmers go really well in this palette. I think for the most part they seem to be leaning just from swatches to be a little bit more almost like a goldish green, which I think will bridge a lot of these shades very nicely. But there's also a really beautiful pink purple duochrome that I think is an interesting choice in here, and I think that one will be really fun with the mint and also that pink mauve shade at the top. It's called Free Love, and I think that this color story really speaks groovy to me. Like, it just really gives off that kind of vibe. So on to the 2nd place. If you've been catching on to the theme, I obviously have a type when it comes to eyeshadows, and so in 2nd place is the Gloomy Gardens by Dieverune Cosmetics. I just look at this color story and it just really inspires me because I love the bright colors. I love the more grungier, a little bit more subdued tones as well. This one is such a fun one and a little bit unexpected in here. And then we have 2 deepening up shades, and then the shimmers, of course, they correspond with the mattes. Clearly, I like shimmers that correspond with mattes a lot. You could use this palette in quads, you could use it in columns. I really love the vibe of this palette, and I just feel like there's so many different looks that you create with this one. You could pair these 2 together, which would be really fun. You could pair these 2 together, you could pair these 2 together. I mean, there's just so many opportunities for different looks, whether they are a little bit more colorful or a little bit more subdued. Love this iridescent shade. I feel like at this point it's a staple to have one iridescent shade in an eyeshadow palette because they really just offer so much versatility. You can really pair this shade with any of these mattes and it will look great. Sometimes I just open this palette to look at this color story, so that's why it is in 2nd place. Definitely very much top of mind when I was thinking about the top 5 color stories. And in number 1 place, this is actually the palette that inspired this video. It is a palette that I recently did a video with, and that is the Poppy Quiet palette from Titanium Foxes. this color story. I just, every time I open it, I don't want to say obsessed. I know everyone hates saying obsessed, but I really, really, really like this color story. I just think that it's so fun. There's a lot of unexpected kind of twists and turns in here. Does that make sense for eyeshadow? I'm not really sure, but it does make sense in my head. And I think that the shimmers in here are just beautifully picked out as well. I love the tones. Again, grungier tones. I love this creamsicle orangey shade, and then the more subdued pinks, and then a mustard. Mustards always get me. A deepening up shade, a grassy green, and then like a super washed out jean kind of color. Love it. Again, shimmers, 10 out of 10. They pair so nicely. Poppy Gem is just the perfect shade to pair with Contemplation and Shadow. And please make sure you check out their Instagram, because the owner of Titanium Foxes does looks like every day, and you can see just how versatile this color story is. I mean, so many looks for inspiration. I definitely want to recreate some with this palette, but again, another one of those palettes that I just open up just to look at it, breathe in the glory of this color story. And I'm extremely excited to see what all these brands are going to be coming out with in the next 6 months, because so far they are absolutely knocking it out of the park. So let me know in the comments below if any of these shocked you, and of course don't forget to leave your absolute favorite color story so far in 2024. I can't wait to hear about your favorites, and thank you so much for watching. I really hope to see you next time.